Hi, welcome to another episode of the Pretend Pros. I'm your host, Jenny Hoffman.
Are you going to call yourself the rookie, or are you going to explain why on earth you're wearing
Well, we'll
sunglasses?
say the rookie, and then I'll explain why
Okay.
I'm going
I feel like you could have
incognito.
a different name this week instead of the rookie. So I've been telling people you're on the injury list. So, alrighty. Well, I am Beth Painter. I am the co-host. I am the IU fan. So for our video listeners, if you have not noticed, I have worn IU merch every single episode we've taped. So that is no exception this week. I have a brand new Indiana alumni shirt on. For our audio listeners, especially my friend Matt, calling him out, I will be wearing merch gear. This is a brand new purchase. I was in IU last week and have decided that you actually cannot have too many IU shirts. And so we added two more. This is one of, and this shirt's actually pretty relevant. So I picked the alumni one on purpose because our guest this week is an IU alum as well. So before I introduce him, Jenny, are you explaining your situation or do you want me to go straight to Eric?
Yes. Yeah, I'll explain. For the viewers that are listening, I am incognito right now in a hat and a pair of sunglasses. For those of you that can see me, I'll let you in on a little secret. Had a little bit of an incident yesterday. I would like to say it was something very cool, like I was shooting the hockey segment and a hockey puck flew in my eye, or I was at the NBA Finals game last night and Jalen Brunson fell in my lap and I was sitting by Taylor Swift. Unfortunately, my life is not that cool, and I had an incident with one of my dogs and a pole, and it ended up going right into my eye. So I have a nice, lovely shiner. So I'm going to keep the glasses on for the remainder of this episode. You know, life happens, and I feel like it goes hand in hand with sports because lots of athletes get black eyes. So I'm just going to consider myself one of those athletes, even though it was with a dog.
I think you also need to explain the t-shirt and the hat that say Ohio State, but we'll get to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not fans. We will talk about the other time you wore that outfit. So, but to introduce Eric, so as I mentioned, Eric's an IU alum. We went to college together. He graduated from IU in 94, and we're pretty sure we met in 92 when I was a freshman. So Eric lives in Charlotte here and is married to his lovely wife, Laura. He has two sons, one of whom just graduated. So congratulations. And then the
Thank
other
you.
one's still in college, I'm pretty sure, right?
He's
Yes.
going to
Okay.
his third year. Yeah.
Okay. His day job is a partner in an investment consulting firm that serves as a fractional CIO to planning focused advisory firms throughout the country. We're not really here to talk about that though. As you may be able to tell from Eric's shirt, if you are watching on video, we are here to talk about cycling. He is a psychologist, which I like that shirt. So Eric is an avid cycler. He has raced several duathlons, including a half Ironman duathlon, which we are going to have questions about. He has also done a charity thing, which I think has the funnest title ever, 24 Hours of Booty. So, Eric, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be on. I debated whether to wear my psychologist shirt or my IU gear, and I figured I knew you would be in your IU gear, so I chose my cycling gear today.
I see your IU stuff on the shelf behind you, so that counts. You're repping.
Always,
Yeah.
always.
So we are going to talk about cycling, but Jenny's favorite thing is when I like to talk about IU athletics. She is a big fan of that topic. So as I mentioned, Eric and Jenny have actually met before, and they met at the Peach Bowl when we went to go watch IU beat Oregon on its way to a national championship. So obviously, Eric and I were decked out in our Hoosiers gear, as was 90% of the stadium in Atlanta. But Jenny chose to wear an Ohio State shirt. So I don't even know if I want to ask you to explain that or if I just go straight into asking Eric if he has any thoughts he would like to share on IU football, because it's my favorite thing to talk about.
Well, I think, didn't we force Jenny to buy an IU shirt at the Peach Bowl?
No, I couldn't go full IU. Full disclaimer, I bought a Peach Bowl shirt that had both IU and Oregon represented.
All right, we'll let that slide. We'll let
Yeah, it's
that
interesting you
slide.
chose not to wear that for this episode because it's actually like the last time we all saw each other. But anyway, so Eric,
No.
is there anything that you want to talk about IU football? I feel the need to always explain to people why this is so amazing, and you certainly can appreciate that, probably even more than I can.
Oh, yeah, it's been decades of mediocre to terrible football, and as a fan since the 90s, I've watched a lot of it, unfortunately, but still a fan. I mean, that's what fandom is, right? You watch your teams even when they're not always so good. So you appreciate the good times. And I think the dream was always just going to the Rose Bowl, winning the Big Ten and that didn't even seem realistic most years. But the last 2 years, I think the word I've used to describe it is just joyful. For Fernando Mendoza, Kurt Signetti, Aiden Fisher, the whole team just provided so much joy in terms of the fandom and the experience, the way they went about winning, what they stood for, how they did it. And yeah, people ask me, are you going to be disappointed if they don't win it next year? It's like, no, I will always have
Yeah.
2025. That year will always exist. Those experiences of going to games will always be there. So I'm appreciative. I'm thankful. I got to experience that. And yeah, we can never win again, and I'll be just fine.
Yeah. That first year when they were doing well 2 years ago, when they lost to Ohio State and Notre Dame, I had people ask me, because I talked about it at work nonstop, right? I was so excited. And after they lost, people were like, oh, are you disappointed? I'm like, I don't think you understand the level of football we've been watching. We lost to the national champ and the runner up. Yeah, I was good with 24, honestly. Like, that would
Yep.
have been enough, I think. 25 was icing on the cake, and it was the best year ever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
And to get to
super
go to the
fun.
games was special. Like to be with you and other, people we graduated with and knew well, and just reunite with people I haven't seen honestly in decades was just part of the special part of that whole experience.
Yeah, I think that's the part that, like, Jenny and I, it's part of why we started this podcast, is what we love about sports, is it does bring people together, right? Like, you watch the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs that have been going on, and in the away stadiums, like, the stadiums are full and the game is not occurring at that stadium, and yet people just wanna be together to, like, enjoy the fun of it, and so, to me, that's also what the IU football brought. Alright, Jenny, do you feel like we have sufficiently talked about Indiana football to cover your needs? I mean, is there anything you'd like to add to this conversation?
I will say that being a fan of another Big Ten school, Ohio State, I was impressed by how well your fans travel. It was, to your point, Beth, earlier, about 90% of IU folks. So you guys were very, very well represented. And I will say your fan base is very nice. And I think that's just because you guys just haven't been there as many times as some of the other teams. But it was a very nice crowd, and I was very happy to cheer for your team that whole game along with the final game. So
I've been
if
shocked
it
at
wasn't going to be my team, I'm happy it was
Oh,
your
that's
team.
nice. I've been shocked at how many people who, when they know I went to IU, from like pretty big schools that have had traditionally good programs like Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, who all said they were rooting for us. Because I want to say to them, if it was the reverse, we would never have been rooting for y'all. Like, I would never root for Ohio State under any circumstances, I don't think. And so I do think it's funny, like the Cinderella of it all definitely got other people that I would not have expected to be excited about
Yeah.
us.
I felt like we had the support of the majority of the country.
Yeah.
And it was, the experiences I had, and Beth, you probably had the same thing. I'd wear my IU shirt to the supermarket, and random people would just stop
Yes.
me and just say, "Hey, great game. We're loving what you guys are doing. We're
Yeah.
rooting for you." I was like, "Do I know you?" Like
Yeah.
just random people stopping me to talk about it, which was super different than anything we've ever had in the past,
Yeah.
and not talking about IU basketball. So it was really great.
Yeah. You told me we would win a football championship before a basketball championship. Since you and I went to school, I would have told you to stop doing illegal drugs. Okay, that may actually be enough IU football. I could talk. I'm so excited for the next season, but we could talk about cycling. So Jenny, I don't know if you want to kick us off with any questions to get us started.
What got you into cycling? I'm assuming you've been doing it since you were a young kid, but what really got you interested in cycling and, doing the road bike and the mountain biking?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jenny. I honestly don't know the answer. I mean, I can remember being on a bike as a young kid. I remember having like a big wheel. If you remember what the big wheel was, you had, kind of on the ground. It was kind of like a tricycle, but lower. I remember having that as a kid and then graduating to a tricycle. And then I remember the first experience on a two-wheeler. My dad at the bottom of the street, we lived at the bottom of a hill, kind of pushing me off and running with me. And the next thing I know, I'm at the top of the hill and he's still at the bottom. And it's just like from literally the jump, I was able to get on a bike, enjoy it, and ride it. So from there, I always found myself on a bicycle. At the time, it was as a kid, it was freedom. Your neighbors or your friends are blocks away. You get off the school bus, you hop on your bike, you go to your friend's house and you hang out until the streetlights come on. You need to go home. So for me, it was always that was my freedom. It was a way to get out and just enjoyed that aspect of it. Sort of the wind in your hair, no worries, the fun of it. And then as I got older, kind of got away from it in college and didn't really have much of an opportunity to do stuff. And after college, when I moved to New York, I said, oh, let's buy, a road bike. So I bought my first road bike and I met people that were doing longer rides and started to participate and just kind of snowballed from there. And being in Charlotte, we get to ride 12 months a year, which is awesome. So just trying to take advantage of it as much as I possibly can.
So I was trying to think of how I was going to relate to this topic this week, and I have some good cycling stories. Now, are they great? Like, I'm an awesome cyclist? No, they're actually the opposite. But your thought about how it brings freedom. So I can remember when I was probably in second grade, and it was a way for us as kids to get out of the house and go to other friends' house and hang out for the summer. And I was coming home on my bike. This is quite the story. I was coming home on my bike and I was late for dinner. So I was trying to rush home. At the same time, I was twirling my baton. You can see where this story is going to go. I flipped over the handlebars. I broke my arm, so I was out for the rest of the summer. And I think I gave myself a black eye actually during that ride. So that was my first introduction to cycling.
Probably not wearing a helmet back in the day either. I know I wasn't. We
I
were
think I actually was for that.
okay.
Jenny's a
Yeah, I
little
was.
younger than us, so maybe helmets were more of a thing by the time she was riding. I don't remember it being a conversation to have a helmet like when we were
No,
kids. Yeah. Yeah.
no, it might be something that they had in the store, but it wasn't anything that anybody was buying that I was hanging out with, at
Yeah,
least.
ditto. So you obviously do have a full-time job. So when do you ride? How do you find time to ride in between that? Assuming being an empty nester now probably makes it a little easier than when your kids were still living at home. But even during those years, when did you find time to ride?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely easier now being an empty nester. I'm part of a few groups. So from, I'll say, the spring to late fall, when the sun is up longer, we have a Wednesday night ride that is about 32-ish miles. It's pretty consistent. So I ride as many Wednesday nights as I can after work. And then I'm part of two groups. One is a Saturday group, one is a Sunday group. So our Saturday group, I'll say depending upon the time of the year, this time of the year, we're leaving around 7:30, 8 o'clock. And that ride will be this time of year somewhere between, I'll say 45 and 60 miles. And then Sunday, we also leave at 8 o'clock, and that's a set route every week, and that's about 42 miles. So weekends are great. In the mornings, I'm home by lunch and have the rest of the day to do whatever. Obviously, if there's something that the family wants to do, I will skip it. But if not, it's a pretty regular group and meet in the same places, a lot of the same people. We all know each other, all respect one another. So it's great having that community.
How long does 40 miles take?
Yeah, so we average, most of these groups are, I'll say somewhere between 18 to 19 and a half miles an hour. So just quick math, 2 hours ish,
Awesome.
and little break, 2.5 hours, depending upon the distance.
Okay.
So it's not bad. Home by 11 o'clock on a Sunday, you're doing
Yeah.
40 miles.
Yeah. Some
That's
people haven't
good.
even
I
gotten
was
out of
going
bed
to
at
say,
that point. So
I'm doing the math in my head because we will ride the local greenway near us and catch it and go down to South Carolina and ride it back. And that's about 20 miles. And that takes us like 4 hours, my speed.
you're
The
maybe
Greenway is great, though. I've taken that from South Carolina all the way up to Uptown, and you can go even further than that. It's amazing how far you can go on that Greenway.
and Laura does not bike, right? So this is sort of your
Does
thing and
not.
she's got other hobbies. Gotcha. Okay.
Fully supportive of what I do, but has zero desire to join,
Yeah.
which is totally fine.
So you talked about like how much you're biking during the week. How much do you think you bike in a year total?
Yeah, so the last several years is probably average between 2,500 to 3,000 miles, which seems like a lot, but then you talk to some of the other people in my group, many of which are retired, and they're riding 8 to 10,000 miles a year. And there's actually a couple people that ride about 20 to 25,000 miles a year. They're doing 100 miles multiple days a week all year long, which for me, that's even a lot. Like I can't even imagine doing that much on a bike, but they love it. It's part of their daily routine, and kudos to them for being able to do that.
Yeah.
You
Thanks.
happen to know how long the Tour de France is mileage-wise?
I want to say it's like 2,100 miles, 1,800 miles, somewhere around there, and it's over 3 weeks. I mean, that ride itself is just superhuman, not only because of the distance and the fact that they're doing it every day and the speeds at which they go, but if you've ever seen some of the mountains they climb, whether it's, the Pyrenees or the Alps, which they do, both each year, some of those hills, they rate them by category, and there's like category 1, 2, 3, and then there's like beyond category. And they often ride some that are just beyond category. It's pretty much straight up, and there's switchbacks, which makes it even harder. And they're still going at like 15 miles an hour, which is just insane. So, those guys are just superhuman in what they're doing.
Yeah, so I know you said you don't race, like that's not what your purpose with cycling was. You race just for the fun of it. But you said you have done some. So what is a duathlon? I don't think I know what that is.
Yeah, so I'm not a swimmer, really. I can swim, but I don't enjoy it and I'm not good at it. So a duathlon, you essentially, if you think about a triathlon, you've got the swim, you've got the bike and the run. Duathlon, you simply replace the beginning swim with another run. So half Ironman, for example, it's a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike, and then a half marathon. You just, in a duathlon, or replace the swim at the beginning with another 5K. So some argue, I won't say this, but some would say that it's a little bit harder because the swim, you are at least wet. You're getting warm, but you're not physically exerting yourself in the same way as you do with a run. And then when you finish the run, you've got to get back on a bike and then go run again. I think they're all incredibly hard, regardless of who does it.
Yeah.
There aren't nearly as many duathlons as there are triathlons. So if you're a triathlete, it's a lot easier to do those than it is to find a good duathlon.
Where did you do yours?
I wasn't very smart. I did mine in Macon, Georgia in June, where
Wow.
it was about 100 degrees during most of the race. But I don't recommend that as your first big race.
How did you train for something like that?
A lot of time, a lot of pain. I'm not someone that studies every little aspect of what I should do. I probably should have done better for this. So I found online some books on training for a duathlon of that distance. And you essentially you have some days where you run, some days where you bike, some days where you rest, some days where you'll do a brick, which is the combination of the bike and the run. So you do your bike, you get off the bike, and you immediately go run. And you just rinse and repeat, and you change your mileage, and you've got to make sure you're eating well and sleeping well and exercising and doing all of those fun things. So it was doing the best I could with that. I felt like I had the bike down pretty good. The run was harder for me. I'm not a natural runner, so my running was fairly slow. But I'd say the two things that got me, one was the heat. I was not prepared for that level of intensity, humidity, and heat. And then nobody really tells you, at least I didn't know about it, as how important nutrition is, not only before the race, but actually during the race. And I was listening to your previous podcast about, your woman who was doing the ultra runs and eating Pringles and just trying to find nourishment. It's really hard to have all that stuff on you all the time and making sure, again, you're getting enough nutrition to sustain yourself and have that energy to keep going. It's really hard.
Yeah, the Pringles would have been helpful to have known that before, but even carrying a can of Pringles seems pretty challenging.
You find something. I mean, they have aid stations, and that's great, but you always have to have other stuff because if you're in between aid stations, you need to make sure you have hydration. You want to make sure you have food. And sometimes if they don't have what you like and what they have out doesn't agree with your stomach, that can create problems. So we're all creatures of habit. We find the foods that we like. We find the foods that we enjoy, that work for us. And, you're always on a ride. I have a colleague that we ride with. He eats Rice Krispie treats on every ride. So, we'll be in the middle of a few miles and he'll pull it out of his back pocket, start chewing on it. He'll eat it at rest stops. Other people love energy bars. Some people like the goos and gels. It's all personal preference.
Tell us about the ride up Mount Mitchell. I happened to catch that in your bio. Tell us about that. For those of you that don't know, listening to this podcast, Mount Mitchell is the highest peak east of the Mississippi. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't recommend doing that. I think I'm one and done on that one. People have been trying to convince me to do it again, and I'm not sure I want to. It was, what's the word I would use for that ride? Relentless. It's 32 miles up, and it's mostly up. So in other rides I've done that have been hilly, I'll say go up and then you get some sort of break and then you go up again. Mount Mitchell is just up. There's very little break. And then what makes it even more painful is I think around 24 miles up or somewhere around there, you actually go down for a mile and a half. So then you just know you have to go back up again, which is even more painful. And you can kind of see the peak, but you know getting there is going to be difficult. And yeah, I picked a bad day to have a bad day on the bike, and it made it up. Was glad I did it, but it was a struggle for me. I was fortunate to be part of a group, and we all stayed together. Everybody was patient. And, I struggled. Other people struggled at times. We just did it all together and made sure we all got up there safely. I'd say the fun part's coming down, but you're hitting speeds of over 40 to 50 miles an hour. So you've got to be super careful going down some of those switchbacks because again, you've got your helmet and you've got a bunch of spandex between you and the road, and that's about it. So you don't want to fall.
Yeah, I remember seeing the photo when you posted it on Facebook that you were all the way at the very top. So I chose what feels like the more reasonable path. I drove and then walked a little bit. But even that little bit up to the top that you have to drive or that you have to walk is pretty steep. So I'm impressed that after you biked the whole freaking thing, I'm assuming you probably, I don't know if you walked the bike up the last little bit or if you biked it, but like that felt like enough exercise, let alone the whole 32 miles that you did.
Yeah, so that was actually the funny part is I had never been up there. So I thought once we got up there, that was it. And then everybody's like, well, no, we've got to all take a picture. And I said, okay, well, where's the sign? And they're pointed up. I'm like, wait, we're going where? There's more climbing. So we walked it up,
Yeah.
but that was the last thing I wanted to do. I'm like, okay, I'll do this because everybody's doing this. But I was like, I'm done. I just want to go back. And I was tired physically, mentally. It was a very long day, but super glad I did it. Again, sometimes you just have to push through and see what your mind and your body are capable of. And yeah, it was a pretty cool experience, but that may be a one and done. We'll see.
So we asked Emily when she was on the podcast to talk about running what her mantra was at mile 80 of this 100-miler marathon. What was your mantra as you were trying to get yourself up this hill?
Yeah, it was pretty simple. The guy that drove me up was ahead of me, and I had nowhere to go. I figured if I went back to the car, I, I'm still 20 miles away from the car, and he's got the keys up there, so I need to at least get to him. So that was how I did it. I was just simple survival at that point.
I guess that works, right? We talked a little too about how like adrenaline gets you over the last bit. It doesn't sound like maybe that was your day if you had a rough day.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to prepare for something like that. I mean, we climb all the time. We live in South Charlotte. There's hills, but it's not 30 miles of relentless climbing. I've never done anything remotely close to that before. So I thought I was prepared. It was hotter than I had anticipated. You're eating a lot along the way, you're drinking a lot along the way, but yeah, it was a tough day in the saddle, but again, you just push through. We were all there to support one another. Again, it's a great community, so it was a lot of fun. But yeah, glad I did it. Not sure I'll do it again. We'll see.
Yeah, well, impressive, even if it was a bad day, because not a lot of people get to say that they did that. So even if you don't think you had a good day, still very, very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, another box to check. I'm glad I
Yeah,
did it.
there you go. That's a good way to look at it.
So what has been the most memorable, besides maybe the Mount Mitchell one, or most beautiful ride that you've ever done?
Most beautiful ride. Oh, wow. That's a good one. Probably for different reasons, but in the Netherlands, it's such a cycling community. And when we went out there as a family a few years ago, I actually did force my family to go on a cycling tour of one of the suburbs outside of Amsterdam. Got on a train, met a guide outside of they have bike depots. If you've never been to the Netherlands, they're, stories tall with thousands of bikes, and that's where everybody parks their bike overnight to get on the train. And so we met this gentleman there. He took us out through the countryside of Amsterdam. And wasn't a great biker, on a little bit of a cruiser bike, but just the experience, seeing all the windmills, visiting some small shops. The scenery out there was spectacular. So that was another bucket list item that I had a ton of fun doing.
Yeah, Jenny and I actually, I guess it's been a month and a half now. We're in Amsterdam for part of the trip and Belgium, the other one. We decided not to do a bike tour in Amsterdam. That felt like a death wish. We did do one though in Belgium because we were in a much smaller city. So I was a little more nervous, I think, than Jenny was. It'd been a while since I'd been on a bike, but we both survived. And because it was like cobblestone and lots of people, and right, it wasn't crazy crowded, but it was crowded enough that I was definitely nervous about taking out the kid and or ending up on the ground myself. So yeah, we did good
I'm
though.
not gonna lie, when I proposed this to Beth as one of our tours, I was like, she's totally gonna say no. I know she's gonna say no, but I'm just gonna ask because, when in Rome. And she agreed to it, and she was a trooper. There were about 10 of us, and we biked all over. If you haven't been to Bruges in
Beautiful.
Belgium, I highly recommend. It was absolutely beautiful. But in Amsterdam, I just couldn't believe the bikes. You talk about
everywhere.
cycling. I mean, you can get hit by one of those things if you're not paying attention. So,
Yeah, they do not love the tourists.
Yeah, definitely not. The alternative to the bike tour, so we did that, but then we also did a waffle making and beer tasting tour. So I felt like we balanced out our time in Belgium well, and we ate lots of Belgian chocolate, so
we
that
ate lots
helped.
of chocolate. I feel like that's the number one.
Yeah,
I mean, that sounds like a good trip. You've got biking, waffles, and chocolate. I
yeah,
mean, that's
it
the
was pretty
trifecta
good.
right there.
But we did see the bike depots that you're talking about because we took the train from Amsterdam to Bruges, and I mean, there were times when we stopped and we were like, "Oh my God, like how many bikes do you think are in that location? Holy mackerel!" It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the culture. I love it out there just for that alone. It's a different type of cycling that I'm used to. There were certainly, I'll say, cyclists that were in spandex going out for miles and miles, but it's just part of their culture to get around by bike, less cars, less trains. So one of the things I wanted to do when I was out there, and I was glad that everybody in the family agreed to go with me.
Yeah, so you've talked a lot about road biking, but I think do you also do mountain biking at all?
Some, a lot less, but it's just a very different discipline. It's still a bike, but yeah, there's a difference between avoiding cars and avoiding trees. It's a very just a different discipline. And in road cycling, you are generally just fairly consistent. You can keep the same RPM, the same miles per hour for a long period of time. It's pretty consistent. You might slow down on a hill, you might speed up on a flat or whatever, but it's pretty consistent. Mountain biking is very much stop and start. So you have to be more agile on the bike. You're maybe standing up more. You have to climb a short hill, but then you've got to avoid a tree or jump over a rock or something like that. So you get a lot of, I'll say, bike discipline in terms of comfort on the bike and how to maneuver it and what it can and can't do. So it's still cycling, but it's a very different kind of workout than it would be being on a road bike. But I love both. I do both. I just tend to do more road biking. It's easier to just leave my house and get on the road than it is to drive to a trail and all the other stuff that comes with that.
So here is my second cycle story.
Does this one end in a black eye as well?
You're just feeding it to me. You're setting me up here. So I have mountain biked before in the past. I gave it up a long time ago because of this incident, but I was mountain biking somewhere in Charlotte in one of the trails, and I got maybe 100 feet in, and you talk about avoiding trees. Well, my bike handlebar hit one of the trees. I hit another tree in my ribs and fell off the bike. And meanwhile, as I'm gimping back because I said, okay, this is a sign I should not be on this trail, I'm going to take my bike back. These two little girls were just cruising along and they just passed me up and they were going full speed. So good for them. But, I was not meant to be on a bike. I feel like this is a common theme. I'm hurting my ribs. I'm breaking my arm. I have a black eye.
I think that's another reason why I don't mountain bike as much. The cost of falling is
Yeah.
much more severe. It's harder to recover. So I still enjoy it. I take less risks if I see a tree or some obstacle that I'm not sure I can get over. I don't hesitate anymore just to stop and get off and walk over it because the cost of being wrong is too great. But you asked a question before about the most beautiful places I've ridden. I actually forgot a mountain biking trip. It wasn't a mountain biking trip, but we went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And we went out and were able to do downhill skiing on the ski slope or downhill cycling on the ski slopes. So you rent the mountain bikes, you're in the full gear, the full helmet, and you don't even need to pedal. You're not even sitting. You're basically just standing on the pedals, gliding through their paths all the way down the mountain. That was super fun. I only did that with one of my kids. The other one, my wife did not want to join us, but we had a blast. You take the gondola up and you fly down. It was super fun.
So you've never done that on Beach or Sugar Mountain here? Because I think at least one of them, I think you can do that.
You can, but I
Yeah.
haven't. You can do it at both here, but
Okay.
I had not done that before. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was so beautiful. It was so nice. I had such a great time. I would love to go back and do that again.
Yeah, I definitely have a fear. Like I hike out at the Whitewater Center, which is for those who are not from the area, it's a local attraction here that has pretty good trails and lots of people mountain bike them. And I was out walking. I never bike them because they scare the heck out of me, but I was out walking once and a biker fell in front of me. So obviously I went and asked him if he was okay. And he was like, yep. And I was like, do you need any help? And he's like, nope. And I was like, are you a little embarrassed? And would you like me to walk away? And he's like, yep. I'm like, okay. I was like, as long as you don't need any help. I think he was mostly his pride had been hurt, nothing else. So that was good. But yeah,
We've all done it.
not
Yeah.
for me.
If you haven't fallen on a mountain bike, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
So it's we've
Or
all
you're
done
not mountain biking, just to be clear.
it.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the 24 hours of booty and what that is for folks that may not be here in Charlotte?
Yeah, so it is the best name for a charity event of all time. So in Charlotte, there is a 3-mile loop in Myers Park called the Booty Loop. I'm not exactly sure how it got its name. I've heard rumors that because it's such a well-traveled 3-mile loop, that there's always been a ton of cyclists and runners on that trail. So people, you would say, look at people's booty because they're always riding or running. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's at least a good story. And it's probably been about 20 years that, this person created this ride, help support cancer, and calls it the 24 hours of booty. It starts on the last Friday night of July and goes for 24 hours. And you don't have to ride or participate for the whole 24 hours. You can ride as much or as little as you want. You can ride a lap. You can ride 200 miles. It's totally up to you. You can ride as an individual. You can be part of a team. And they just do a phenomenal job. In the middle of the loop is college, and we are allowed to sleep in tents on the field. They have showers and set up. They've got food, entertainment, cycling professionals to help with maintenance. They've got medical people on staff. They just do a phenomenal job of supporting the cycling community. There's 1,000 people plus that do this every year. They've raised millions of dollars for cancer support. And I've probably done it about 4 or 5 times now over the last 20 years. And it's unfortunately, as you get older and you meet more people, I always ask people when they give a donation to write me a name of somebody that I'm writing in honor of or in memory of or what have you. And unfortunately, that list has gotten way too long. There's just so many more people that are afflicted by cancer. So I always enjoy it as kind of supporting people that have been dealing or have dealt with cancer. I love it for the cycling part of it. It's a great part of Charlotte. If you haven't been, you can stand outside and cheer people on. There's tons of people out in 2, 3 in the morning with cowbells cheering us on, and that's for me some of the best fun I have is riding in the middle of the night because it's 7 o'clock it starts, lots of people, it's really crowded, tons of fun. But 2, 3 in the morning, it's super quiet out there. You can hear your chain going around. You can hear your wheels and tires on the pavement. It's a level of peace. The moon is out. It's just a very serene, quiet experience. It makes you very contemplative of what you're riding, why you're riding, who you're riding for. I enjoy that experience. So I've done it a few times. I think the most I've ever done in the 24-hour period is a little over 120 miles. That's not straight through. I'll stop. We'll eat. We'll sleep as best you can in a tent in the middle of a field in the middle of July. But it's a really cool event and a great experience.
A lot of times when we've done these, we've had guests on. Jenny's decided she wants to try something that the guest has talked about. So I was going to suggest she try cycling up Mount Mitchell, but maybe this event would be a slightly better way to get started. It could do something good for the world.
We are a biking household, but I do not have a road bike because I'm a little nervous about how thin those tires are.
It
And
doesn't matter.
me
There's a
staying
guy
up.
out there doing on a unicycle. So just any bike will do. There are kids out there. There are people on cruisers. Sir Purr is out there on his bike from the Panthers. He's our Panthers mascot. So it's just all you need is a bike and some joy and come out and ride. And if you don't want to ride, I think they still do a walk, which you can sign up to do a 24-hour walk, and they have a route that goes through that area as a walk too. So lots of ways you can volunteer, lots of ways to participate.
Okay. And do you happen to know the dates for this year for those
It is
listening?
the last Friday, Saturday of July. I don't know the exact dates this
Okay.
year, but it's always that last Friday, Saturday, always in Myers Park at that 3 mile loop.
All right, we'll report back, and we'll report back if Jenny decides to bike up the side of Mount Mitchell as well, just as a
Th-
Yeah.
possibility.
That's a no. Maybe I will hike it one day, but biking is a no. You did not sell me on that, Eric.
I
Did
would
not sell me
recommend a
on it.
road bike for that. Definitely a road bike for Mount Mitchell. No, you don't want to do that on mountain bike.
Yeah, I would recommend a
No.
four-wheeled vehicle, aka a car. That was a much better way to do that.
Now, speaking of bikes, what is your go-to bike for road versus mountain? Because I know that's a big thing in the cycling world that a lot of us non-cyclists probably don't have any idea.
Yeah, it's just different. It's all personal preference. Some people prefer one brand over another. I've had I'm on my third different brand. I had one that I liked, and then I wanted to get another one during COVID, and they didn't have any. Inventory was sold out, and I said I really need a new bike. So I went with another brand that I had tried and really enjoyed. I've absolutely loved it. My mountain bike is from a completely different brand, and that's my second or third mountain bike, and I've had different brands there too. So some people stick with one, some people change up. It's the components change, the price obviously depends. You usually find a price point that you want. It just kind of depends on the bike shop you use. Some of them will only carry a certain brand. So if you're committed to a bike shop that only carries one brand, that's the brand you're getting. So really, again, it's all personal preference. I just recommend trying it as best you can. You can't take it home with you, but if you can do a few miles at the store or around the store just to kind of see what it feels like, most of the time you have a pretty good idea of what you're looking for and how it's going to feel relative to what you've been on. And after that, it's just a matter of personal preference.
Okay. And have you ever fallen off your road bike because of clip-ins?
Yes, everybody's done that. Absolutely. Yeah, I think the first time I owned a road bike, I was living in Hoboken, New Jersey. And for those that don't know, Hoboken is just across the river from Manhattan, and it's a fairly concentrated city, narrow streets, cars parked on both sides of the road, lots of traffic going in all directions, lots of stop signs, lots of people walking. And I was trying to get out of town, hadn't been on a road bike with clip-ins for a very long time at that point. And I got to a stop sign and there was a bus and I forgot to clip out and fell right over in front of the bus. And kind of like Beth was talking about being embarrassed, I could see people pointing and laughing outside, inside the bus. Fortunately, it was well before cell phone cameras and all that fun stuff because I'm sure it would have been a meme. But yeah, we've all fallen out. I go on group rides now where somebody will get somewhere and just forget to clip out and fall over. It just happens. It's fortunately not a lot, but happens to all of us at some point.
Yeah, nothing about this episode is making me want to start road biking. I'm definitely nervous about like falling, and then the clip-ins doesn't make it any better, and then the crowd of people. Does that happen where someone knocks somebody else into somebody else and causes the? I think we talked about with the running, the domino effect of people going down. Is that common with biking?
Knock on wood here
Yeah.
before we say that. There's definitely accidents I've seen and been not really part of, but been part of groups where there's been an accident where somebody falls and you're going 20 miles an hour. If the person in front of you goes down, it's hard to avoid them very quickly. You're likely going down with them. So we've had some bad accidents. We had one incident where a gentleman went down in the middle of the road, was on his back, actually lost consciousness for about a minute. And we were calling EMS and trying to get an ambulance out. And you have your phone, so you can kind of know where your location is. But I don't know every street sign that I'm at. I'm 50 miles away from home, so you're trying to tell the ambulance where to find this person. And we're trying to direct traffic and also keep our friend safe on the ground and not moving after he regained consciousness. He wanted to get right back up. We're like, no, 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 we don't know what's wrong with you. So it's a really good community. So we all try to be safe. We all want to get home. So if we see somebody doing something that's dangerous, we'll point it out. It's also why, at least for me, I ride generally with groups that I know, just because I know the people, I trust the people, I know their tendencies, I know how they ride, and I feel comfortable. If I go to a group ride and I don't feel comfortable, I don't go back. And, that's pretty much part of it. It's also why I don't ride by myself, just because I feel safer being in a group ride than I often do by myself on some of the Charlotte roads. So it's just good to have strength in numbers.
Yeah. Is there anything about biking that you think non-bikers would be surprised by?
Yeah, good question. I'd say one is how much we communicate on our rides themselves. I think a lot of times we go out there and people have no idea what we do. They've never been part of a group ride, but we're constantly communicating with each other. Most of us will have little computers on the front of our bikes where we have lots of information, but one of the arguably the most important information we have, especially for rides that change every week, is we have the map of the route we're doing. So we know 3/10 of a mile, we're turning left. So we are shouting to everybody and pointing, we're turning left. People in the back of the group are communicating whether it is safe to turn. If we're making a left and there are oncoming cars, we need to make sure that there's nobody behind trying to pass. So they're communicating. If we're in the front, you're communicating to the people in the back that it's safe to turn and it's clear. So we are constantly communicating with each other in terms of, if I'm slowing down or if I need to get out of the pace line or if I need to turn, where the turns are. We'll be social, we'll have a good time, but safety is always our number one priority. We all just want to get home safely, have a good time, not get injured. If we all do that every ride, that's a pretty good ride for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hmm.
What is a rookie mistake that someone could possibly make when joining one of these group rides?
A rookie mistake, not paying attention to the rest of the group, I'd say. So, each group has a way that we rotate through the group. So, if you're on the front, you don't stay on the front all 50 miles. You kind of cycle through, and each group will have a different way that they rotate through. Some do what they call a banana peel, where you'll peel off the front and go to the back. You might do it on both sides. You might do it on one side. I'm part of most of my groups. We are a single rotation, so we're never more than two wide, and that's for our safety. And then some of the people we just ride with, if they're new to the group, they don't pay attention. They could do something outside of what our norm is, which creates a dangerous situation for us potentially. So we try to make sure if there's somebody new, which we're always, trying to be welcoming, follow what is happening around you, pay attention, make sure you're communicating to the rest of us and be part of the group. So, when you're in the front, your job isn't to go, if we're going 18 miles an hour on average, your job isn't to go 26 miles an hour. You're not supposed to push the group. Stay at, the 18, 19, know what your partner next to you is doing, assuming, you're too wide and just stay together. You don't have to be a hero. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just, again, see what the group is doing. When you join a group, we always, that it's their group. It's not your group. It's their group. So pay attention to what they're doing. Be a friendly person to join.
Yeah, I've always wondered because it seems like it does have to be maybe not choreographed, but some version of choreographed so that, because you're going through stop signs and it can't just be chaos. So it's interesting to hear that that's how you see them and you're like, how are they making all that work? So it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's always different ways to do it. There's a methodology where it's, I'll say, a hybrid of what we do where we're rotating, but you can do like a constant rotation. So you're not in the front for more than a couple seconds, and then people are just constantly rotating. That to me is really stressful because you've got to really pay attention to what's going on. If you hit a hill, that impacts everything. So I just we stay in the front for a mile to 2 miles and we rotate. We tell everybody we're rotating, and there are multiple ways that we can do that visually and verbally. And again, you just kind of pay attention to what's happening around you. And for us, it's second nature just because we do it all the time. But when you join a new group, it's trying to understand how they rotate. And there's only so many ways to do it, so it's not really that hard. But again, you have to understand what the group dynamic is that you're joining if it's a new one.
All right. I have one last question, Jenny. I don't know if you have any others.
I think I'm good.
So I'm gonna bring it back to IU because that's where we started. So did you ever race the little 500 when we were at IU?
So I did not. I was too focused on my studies. If you remember when I was in college, I had some stress in college. And I didn't know that I had the time to do all the training that was required for the Little 500. So for those that don't know, IU has a bike race every spring called the Little 500. The movie Breaking Away was based on that ride. It still goes on every year. And I think it was my junior year that we had our first fraternity teams. And we were the only one that had a men's and a women's team, which was pretty cool. So I don't remember if it was my junior year or senior year that we had our first teams, but it was cool to have that engagement with our fraternity and see our brothers, female and male, ride for us and with our name on their jerseys. But I never did participate myself. No.
Yeah, Eric and I were in a business fraternity, just to help clarify some of that. That's actually how we knew each other. But the Little 500 is connected to the Indy 500. They made a bike version of it on campus. And it is a lot of fraternities and sororities that race. You don't have to be in the Greek system too. But if you have not seen the movie Breaking Away, it's a pretty cool one. It was actually filmed in Bloomington. It's about the Little 500. It's also the biggest party weekend at IU. That's historically, I think, some people maybe got arrested for the first time. Not one of us, but people we might know got arrested. Definitely was not. It actually was not all any of us, because my mom listens to this podcast, just to be clear.
You're going to leave us with that
Yeah, it was
cliffhanger?
not us, but maybe somebody Eric and I know did have that happen to them. So
Yeah, that was a great weekend. That was a lot of fun. I always
Yeah.
enjoyed watching it. I always respected the people that rode in it, but I never did participate myself. I don't say I regret it, just because at that time I was
Yeah.
focused on my studies and what I needed to do for school. And there was a lot of training that I just didn't think I had the time to commit. And I didn't want to commit to something and let my teammates down.
Yeah, it almost felt like, the season's obviously not very long, but it is a version of being a student athlete at IU, but it's not obviously an actual student athlete, because those guys train for a long time to get ready for that. So it's a very cool event.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no NIL money in the Little
No.
500.
Nope, there is not.
Yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that you have those big donors like Mark Cuban,
Yeah.
maybe it'll get its moment in time.
A funny Little 500 story. They brought back the bison, obviously has re-become the IU mascot, which I think for those of us that went to school there in the 90s, I did not know he had ever been the mascot before, but I think that's how they reintroduced him. I read the article when he first started showing up places that it was a couple professors that wanted to bring him back, and they decided to test it Little 500 weekend. So they brought somebody in the mascot character and figured, well, if the university kind of reacts badly, then we'll rethink this plan. But he was so embraced, and officials with the university were taking photos with him, that they figured that they were onto something. And of course, I don't think they could have ever planned for IU football to have had the 2 years it had after that. That timed really well. That like even fans like from our generation that didn't know anything about the bison have readopted him a little bit. So kind of cool.
Well, you said, Beth, that you got new IU gear. Do you have IU gear with the bison on it?
I have a koozie for a drink. I felt weird buying the shirt because he wasn't the mascot when we were there. We kind of famously did not have a mascot, so we didn't get to be in any of the cool mascot commercials. And people would always say to me, "What is a Hoosier?" You're like, someone from Indiana. But so I have embraced him, but I feel weird about wearing him on a shirt. I'm not quite there yet.
You got to get the mascot. I fully embraced it. I think it was last year the kids got me a shirt for Father's Day. It had the full bison on the back. Fully embraced it.
Yeah.
All in.
He's much cuter than the one like from the 60s when he was, at least one of the times he was the mascot. I've seen photos of like that guy, and it was not good. So the
Well, that's
reincarnation
why they
was much
stopped. Part
better.
of why they stopped it. It was scaring children.
Yeah.
It was not children friendly. So they're like, but we can't have this mascot. Well, I mean, nobody thought, let's make it less scary. They just said, let's get rid of the mascot in total, which who knows? I wasn't there.
Yeah. I like to think that only the state of Indiana can only have one super, super creepy mascot, and that's clearly Pistol Pete or Pete, whatever his name is, the Boilermaker from Purdue. He regularly makes creepiest mascot lists. He's not always first, but he is in top 5 creepiest, weirdest
I think that's
mascots.
just some bias on your part.
No, it's not. If you Google it, I'm not making that up. That's very true. It's along with, I think, the Providence Friar. I think that guy makes that list. Or maybe it's the Wake Forest, like the Deacon Demon or whatever he is. Yeah, but there's a couple of them that are regularly on like creepy lists. And so Indiana's already got that covered. We don't need more creepy mascots. The guys up north can take that trophy.
Yeah. I'm happy to be a Hoosier, proud of it, love it. And
Ditto.
yeah, I've enjoyed watching you both on the podcast. You say you're pretend pros, but I've listened to enough podcasts to hear all the dimes you're dropping on NFL trades and NHL talk and WNBA. You both know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
That's all Beth. I just provide the entertainment. She comes prepared, and I just happen to think of stories on the fly.
My favorite ones are when we talk about something and Jenny doesn't know who we're talking about. And it's like somebody who's current and, maybe you should know. What did you say last week that the guys on the Knicks had all played together at Vanderbilt?
Vanderbilt. Yeah, I was close. It started with a V, and maybe I was one guy off, but I knew there were three.
Yeah, she
So-
had Carl Anthony Towns having gone to not just Villanova, but actually going to Vanderbilt, which none of them went to. So, we have those moments. That's why we keep the pretend in the pretend
It's all good.
title.
It's all good. A for effort.
Yeah. And we both legitimately enjoy the sport. So that's kind of nice. Well, I think that will wrap us up. Unless you have any parting wisdom, either IU or cycling related, that you would like to impart.
I am all good. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was fun.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. And if you've liked what you've heard and you've stuck with us this far, we would love for you to subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We hope to see you next week.